2 a.m. in Taiwan, the rebel island, which for years has lived under the threat of invasion from China. Holger Chen is a former member of a triad, as the organizations making up the Chinese Mafia are known. A reformed gangster.
If China invades us, those goddamn mobsters will infiltrate everything and sabotage our military. They'll spy on our army for the Chinese Communist Party. I just know that's what's going to happen. I was scared. I thought I was going to die. I took 3 bullets. They went clean through me. It was a Bamboo Union member who shot me. I could have killed the guy. As for the instigator of that contract killing, I hope the police catch him. One day I spoke out about the fact that he's in the pay of the Chinese Communist Party.
Holger suspects the head of the Bamboo Union, his former triad, of trying to silence him.
I have absolutely nothing to do with the shooting of Holger Chen. He doesn't even deserve to be killed by me.
This would not be the first time that the triads have meddled in politics. And their ambitions are not restricted to Taiwan. Since their creation, the triads have poisoned Chinese society to the point of challenging those in power and forging alliances with them. They brought down the last Chinese empire, and their ranks have included the father of modern China. Recently, in Hong Kong, they savagely attacked pro-democracy protesters.
I can't tell you anything, obviously.
Little is known about the triads, the world's most influential organized crime syndicates.
If the gang survives, we survive.
The triads seek a foothold on every continent, from the smallest islands of the Pacific to the megacities of the West, which they flood with a deadly drug. Whichever powers they serve, they have but one cause: their own, and their insatiable thirst for money and power. This is their story. The Chinese Mafia has long been engaged in drug and people trafficking, illicit gambling, money laundering, and counterfeiting. Constantly adapting, it also excels at cybercrime and financial crime. It's made up of several triads, whose strongholds are located on the fringes of China. The largest are the Sun Yun and the 14K in Hong Kong, while the Bamboo Union and the Celestial Alliance are based in Taiwan. This 56-year-old man, aka Iron Tyrant, is the newly appointed head of the Celestial Alliance. Currently the world's most powerful triad, it has tens of thousands of members. For the first time in its history, the organization has agreed to be filmed. Does Iron Tyrant see this as an opportunity to flex his muscles? Or is he hoping to make his mark in his men's presence as a modern man and open communicator? Tonight, at his headquarters, he has brought together his board of directors. These godfathers head up some of the Triad's 300 branches in Taiwan and abroad, as well as its criminal activities. This empire controls factories, banks, media outlets, nightclubs, and countless companies. Iron Tyrant has agreed to share his story and some of his plans as the Triad's new boss, with the proviso that we do not mention any criminal activities which could land him in trouble with the law.
I've paid my dues. I've done a lot of jail time. Getting a position in the organization was my goal, my aim in life, but maybe not at such a young age. All of a sudden, everything speeds up, and you have to adapt.
Iron Tyrant forged his reputation as chief hitman for one of the Triad's branches.
In the past, I had to be fierce and despotic. But when you have this position, when you manage so many organizations simultaneously, you need to take a consensual approach, be more diplomatic.
The Celestial Alliance's new boss can rely on deep-rooted traditions and strong cultural codes. He started out in his street gang. Then, in jail, a godfather introduced him to the world of the Triads.
I was locked up with him for 2 years, 24/7. I learned a great deal from him. He told me about the Celestial Alliance's traditions, the spirit of obedience I had to comply with, how to rise to the ranks of a secret society.
The legend the Triads claim as their own is embodied by this jade statue of a general who unified the Chinese Empire 2,000 years ago. A symbol of war and loyalty, it is revered by the Triads. More than any other mafia, the Triads' history is intertwined with that of their country. Iron Tyrant's godfather taught him this history in jail, a history all members must know and celebrate. In the 17th century, the Chinese Empire was conquered by a dynasty from remote Manchuria, the Qing, triggering a long period of civil war. To protect themselves from the tyrannical regime, peasants and lowly workers took up arms. They founded secret societies, forerunners of the Triads. In the late 19th century, the most powerful of these was the Hongmen.
The first Hongmen organization, the Heaven and Earth Society, led the peasants' revolt. The Qing court was tracking them, so they went underground. Over time, it's true that the Hongmen became a mafia-like organization.
The Hongmen and the secret societies did not confine themselves to defending the weak against the Qing government. They extorted and exploited the population, gradually evolving into criminal organizations. The arrival of Westerners represented a fantastic opportunity. The British gained control of the great port of Hong Kong, through which opium arrived from India. Following the Opium Wars, China was forced to legalize the trade of this drug that was ravaging the country. The secret societies participated in the trade, ran opium dens, and grew rich. As these secret organizations reminded them of Freemason societies, the British dubbed them Triads, meaning societies of heaven, earth, and humanity. But the British eventually realized that the Triads' ambitions were not restricted to the drug trade.
Didn't pay attention to those tribe members until eventually there were a couple of unrest that threatened the British living in that area. They started to acknowledge the problem of triads in Hong Kong. So basically that was the beginning for criminalizing triad membership and attending triad meetings in Hong Kong.
By the start of the 20th century, the Triads were powerful enough to change the course of China's history. They provided decisive financial support to the nationalist movement opposed to the Qing dynasty. The movement's leader was a former member of a Hong Kong triad, Sun Yat-sen.
He became a Hong stick, that is, one of the Hongmen's leaders.
In 1912, with the Qing defeated, Sun Yat-sen founded the Republic of China, then distanced himself from the Hongmen.
In Chinese, we say, when the birds are gone, the bow is stored. In other words, you hide the bow used to kill the birds. So when it was necessary to lie low, that's what they did.
Even so, the Triads acquired sufficient prestige to recruit all those who agreed to serve them in exchange for protection.
Look at me. I'm a puny guy. I can hardly defend myself. One day at junior high, some kids held me up with a BB gun. A bit like now, only we have real guns. I was scared. My friends heard about it. We went back the next day and beat the crap out of them. With that gang, little by little, we started beating up anyone who picked a fight with us. That's when I started mixing with people in high places.
The Siggy, as he is known, joined the Bamboo Union, one of the Taiwan-based triads, at age 15. First, he was initiated in a small neighborhood temple run by his first godfather.
Belief is what underpins the gangs. For me, everything is connected. My initiation ceremony involved praying together and swearing an oath of allegiance.
Unchanged since the beginnings, the Triad's oath consists of a promise of absolute loyalty. Those who waver will be run through by a myriad of daggers. It's a lifelong commitment, in theory. Holger Chen split from the Bamboo Union, which he had joined in his youth.
Those people don't want to obey the law, so the bosses can't impose too many rules. They use beliefs instead. Their aim with these oaths is to recruit and control youngsters. Each boss makes up his own rules. The fact is, you join a mafia because the godfathers look rich, classy, and powerful. That was my case.
Following his initiation, the Siggy joined a minor branch of the Bamboo Union, which rules over a neighborhood of Taipei, the capital.
We hang out together every day. My gang brothers are like family to me. Our rule is, when there's an interesting job, we discuss it together. We always think as a gang because we don't really have personal interests. If the gang survives, we survive. If the gang makes money, we do too.
The Siggy started out under the orders of this brother, who runs a pawnbroking business, one of the Triad's traditional activities.
The first time I made money, I was young. I was sent to recover a debt. The debtor wasn't home. He must have been in jail. There was just his old mom and his little girl. What could I do? At the time, I felt bad for them. And I did not manage to get the money. But I did the week after. They gave me $100. That was my first experience.
The only real rule of the triads of yesterday and today is to make as much money as possible by all possible means. And when it comes to money-making, one man stands out.
Big Ear Do and his Green Gang are idols. When I was a kid, we collected everything we could about them and their activities.
Du Yusheng, aka Big Ear Du, ran the Green Gang, the main triad of the 1920s. He was the master of Shanghai, China's largest city. Nicknamed Sin City, it was partially controlled by the British and French at the time.
Big Ear Do is a role model. We can learn a lot from the way he managed his affairs.
We would listen to the Godfathers talk about him. It made us want to follow his example. But if you did the same thing now, you'd be put away for life.
From a poor family, Du started out in the flourishing industry of prostitution and brothels. In this poverty-stricken country, young girls were sold by their parents. Girls like Yin Baozu, a prostitute at 9, dead from exhaustion at 18. Du amassed his wealth mainly through the trade of opium, to which millions of Chinese were addicted. His influence in the underworld led to his appointment as the French concession's chief of police. In 1927, he acquired the only thing he still lacked, a prominent political role. In the blue-collar city of Shanghai, a new force emerged, the Communist Party. Big Ear Du feared he would lose his grip on the workers. When they went out on strike, he offered his services to the new leader of China, Sun Yat-sen's successor. President Chiang Kai-shek feared the communists as well. On April 12, 1927, the Green Gang butchered 5,000 workers. As a reward, Big Ear Du became a key player in Chiang Kai-shek's regime and president of the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Now, at the height of his fame, he was described as a blend of Al Capone and Rockefeller. But the massacre had unforeseen consequences. Decapitated, the Communist Party chose a new leader, Mao Zedong. Relying no longer on the workers, but on the peasant masses, it seized power in 1949, after 20 years of war. In Shanghai, the last procession of a triad on Chinese soil was filmed. The triads were now in danger from the communists. Big-eared Du and the Green Gang fled in haste, along with Chiang Kai-shek and his 2 million supporters.
I was 2 years old when we moved to Taiwan. World War II had just ended. My mother hoped I'd have a peaceful and happy life there.
White Wolf is the son of mainlanders who fled to the island of Taiwan with Chiang Kai-shek to prepare for revenge against the communists. Chiang Kai-shek needed to impose his dictatorship on the local population. Once again, the Green Gang offered him their expertise. The White Terror left 30,000 dead. Big-eared Du died soon after, and the Green Gang became part of the state apparatus. In the early 60s, inspired by the Green Gang, mainlanders' children formed their own triad. A bright student, but lost in life, White Wolf joined them.
I started mixing with those people. Have you seen the movie A Brighter Summer Day? I joined the Bamboo Union. Why does anyone join a gang? I'll sum it up in a few words. Young girls want to be beautiful, and boys want to be brave. Simple as that. Pool was our main form of entertainment. One day, a police officer struck a bamboo brother. I rushed at him and stabbed him with my knife. Later, when I was incarcerated in the United States, they couldn't believe their ears. Over there, you get at least 10 years for stabbing a cop. Attempted murder. You can imagine their faces when I said I'd paid a $100 fine.
As a child of the mainland elite and a Bamboo Union member, White Wolf enjoyed a degree of impunity. His feat of arms got him noticed. While still a student, he climbed the ranks of the Triad, which still only had a few dozen members.
I started managing poker tables, making money. On my first day, I made $300, which was more than my parents earned. And that's how I got into it.
Hi, we're standing on a Chinese junk in the harbor of one of the most unusual, and in some ways one of the most important cities in the world, Hong Kong.
An exciting and swollen city, Chinese with a British accent.
My parents suggested my uncle adopt me and put me up in Hong Kong. I was thrilled. I imagined Hong Kong as a fabulous place. But the fact is, he lived in a shack.
In the 1960s, Li, aka the Rascal, fled the poverty of communist China. He ended up in a huge shantytown on the outskirts of an unfamiliar megacity.
It was home to new arrivals as well as long-term residents who were not fazed by anything. The rats were as big as cats.
The Triads took advantage of the disoriented refugees. Following their flight from China in 1949, Hong Kong became the Triads' second stronghold after Taiwan, the most promising as well. The British colony was more permissive than the Taiwanese dictatorship. Overwhelmed, the Royal Hong Kong Police abandoned the Chinese population of the city's outskirts to the Triads.
Sergeant, let's get these people off the street.
Li joined his neighborhood's dominant gang, the 14K.
My boss has told me the Triads were anti-Manchurian. It's an old story. All I cared about was eating, drinking, and having fun. Being a perpetrator rather than a victim. I didn't give a damn about overthrowing the Qing and restoring the Ming to power.
Li, the Rascal, was put in charge of selling the Triads heroin.
I had my own stall. I injected my customers. It was 20 cents a shot. People lined up. A single syringe and needle for dozens of people. That's how it was. After a while, I started managing the brothels too. We'd cry, $5 a trick. We thought our organization was great. My boss told me the 14K's big boss was a military man. An anti-communist military man. He went on about him all the time.
This is the big boss, General Kut. A former ally of Chiang Kai-shek, he founded the 14K in 1945.
He controlled and managed these secret military groups who see Hong Kong as a base and wait for the time to, to go back to China and compete with the communists.
With this in mind, the 14K organized guerrilla training in the jungles of Southeast Asia and offered its services to the CIA. Their endeavor failed.
When Kut died, And that became a problem because they couldn't find a legitimate successor. And eventually they just become disorganized and they just break down from 36 branches to numerous more 14K groups.
The 14K then decided to stick to its criminal activities. Its links with the Golden Triangle enabled it to dominate the trade of heroin, to which 10% of all Hong Kongers became addicted. While Lee the Rascal sold the drugs, Lau, aka the Bruiser, was one of the heavies who stopped rivals muscling in on this lucrative trade.
There are several types of gangsters. The slick types who wear luxury brands and like to look good. And the tough cookies. Little by little, I became a bad guy.
Lau saw a formidable rival try to move in on his turf.
They ambushed me. They wanted to take me out. We fought with bottles fashioned into blades, which sink into your flesh. I wasn't at war with them. They were simply targeting my gang. In our neighborhood, the Sun Yee-on only had 2 bases, but they were super solid.
The Sun Yee-on was founded by the Hung, a wealthy family who had fled communist China. Its boss was a discreet man known as the Dragon Head. He was assisted by his young brother, Charles, the respectable face of the family.
The interesting thing about the Sun Yee-on is that they adopted a heredity system. That is something quite different from the other triad society.
Initially, the Triad ruled over the countless coolies who were ubiquitous in the British colony. Its leaders then set their sights higher than turf wars over drug territory and other ordinary criminal activities. In the 70s and 80s, as Hong Kong grew, so did the opportunities. And they took full advantage of these.
With their reputation, it's easier for them to recruit more and more new members. And also, the manpower actually is the most important resources for most of the triad societies, because there's not only for, having people to exercise violence, but also to operate different legal or illegal businesses.
Hong Kong became a golden goose for the Triads. The city's nightlife scene was theirs. They ruled the city by day as well, buying up businesses, engaging in real estate fraud, and large-scale smuggling. An estimated 500,000 people out of a population of 4 million worked in some capacity for a triad. The Sun Yee-on alone had some 100,000 members.
Basically, at that time, as a Hong Konger living in Hong Kong, since you get up in the morning, when you enjoy your coffee in a tea restaurant, the restaurant is likely operated by the Triad members. And also when you get on the minibus, that route can be controlled by the Triad members. And after work, when you go for a movie, that can be produced by the Triad members. So basically, every aspect of your life is all related to triads.
The owner of the city's largest newspaper, the Oriental Daily, was also a heroin trafficker who had no qualms about having a vendor of a rival newspaper killed. The Triads were ruthless. Those who refused their demands risked being killed, or like this storekeeper, having their daughter kidnapped.
Because they ask me, where can I get this kind of money? I don't have to. Well, exactly, yeah.
Fresh out of police academy, Briton Martin Purbrick arrived in Hong Kong in the 80s when London decided to expand the colony's police force.
The police in Hong Kong were institutionally corrupt. That was quite clear. Or most officers, in some sense, at senior and at junior level, were accepting money, bribes from criminals, and that inevitably means Triad Society members.
There are so many people and so many different businesses that you only have to walk about 50 yards to see just about every spectrum of life going.
Whenever a police car turned up at the drug stall, my boss would say to me, "Hey, Lee, it's time to hand out the cash and appease the demons."
Many police officers of Chinese descent belonged to Triads.
Were these involved? I don't know, Steve. I never asked. I don't know. They may be.
The Sun Ye-on was protected by Police Chief Lu Li, himself one of its leaders.
It's not that common for people just to offer you a bribe. People will cultivate you as a friend, and from that relationship give you some inducements, benefits.
Hey, madam, if you hear anything, let me know. Yeah, sure. Anyway, I have your phone number. Yeah, sure.
It can be girls, drugs, entertainment, free drinks. These things can start at a low level and then build up to a point where suddenly you become obligated to someone.
An anti-triad bureau was set up, headed by a seasoned police officer.
This is some of the ones, in fact, they're not all we've managed to seize here in the Bureau in the last 3 months. Now, some...
He resigned shortly after this film was made, when it was discovered that he was working for the Triads.
These are specifically manufactured.
No. The situation in this case is that...
The British authorities were overwhelmed by a problem that was no longer restricted to Hong Kong. One day, the American Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, informed the investigators that a Hong Kong triad was smuggling large quantities of heroin into the States, and that they suspected the involvement of another triad in the US, a comparatively unknown Taiwanese organization.
The consignment has been delivered in San Francisco. It was delivered this morning in San Francisco.
A man known as White Wolf happened to live near San Francisco. This bright student had come to the U.S. to study at one of the West Coast's top universities, an unusual occurrence in the rough world of the Triads. In fact, White Wolf had become one of the Bamboo Union's leaders. In charge of 100 or so of its members, he was tasked with extending the Triads' influence in the States. He bought a restaurant, which became a distribution hub for heroin from the Golden Triangle. Some people were envious.
The Hua Qing gang showed up. We had a gunfight. To be honest, those guys were all right. They got arrested. But at the hospital, they didn't report me. And we ended up becoming brothers.
White Wolf forged an alliance with this local organization active in California's Chinatowns. He was following a long tradition. The Triads established roots in North America in the 19th century, with the first wave of immigrants fleeing poverty and war. They smuggled in, then provided jobs and protection to the Chinese, who mostly kept to themselves. The Triads also supplied these men with prostitutes, virtual slaves. Over the following decades, the Triads' presence in America's Chinatowns increased with the growth of the Chinese diaspora. The 14K and the Sun Yee-on put down roots in New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, followed by the Bamboo Union. Taiwanese politics caught up with White Wolf during his American adventure. One day in 1984, one of the Bamboo Union's best hitmen came calling.
He disappeared one morning. Every day he'd get up and play the guitar. But that morning it was very quiet.
Not far from San Francisco, Henry Liu, a Taiwan-born writer and regime critic, was assassinated.
I read the papers and understood what had happened.
Under pressure from the U.S., furious the murder had been committed on its soil, the killer was arrested on his return to Taiwan, as was Bamboo Union's boss, Dry Duck. The two men were paraded like common criminals, but the Triad had taken precautions.
I said to the boss, Dry Duck, make sure no one tries to eliminate you. He told me he'd thought about that and had made a tape recording. Basically, they called in the boss, Dry Duck, and said to him, deal with that guy. I warned the Taiwanese government. We know everything. We've got a tape, and we'll use it if we have to.
The tape, which White Wolf handed over to the American police, also revealed that the Bamboo Union had been tasked with suppressing opposition to Chiang Kai-shek's successor, who was under threat by a democratic movement. At its height, the Triad had some 40,000 members.
Dry Duck's style was just like big-eared dudes. Those in power wanted to buddy up to him. He had dim sum with the president's brother every week. The Bamboo Union basically ran Taiwan.
In Taiwan, these revelations shook the country to its core. The Secret Service bosses who had investigated the murder of Henry Liu were arrested. The regime teetered and promised free elections. The Bamboo Union had unintentionally toppled the dictatorship founded by Chiang Kai-shek, the Triad's traditional ally. Senior members were jailed, as were small-time Taiwan-born gangsters, who were arrested in a major sweep targeting the Mafia.
When the Bamboo Union got arrested, they had each other's backs, whereas we small local gangs were on our own. We had to protect ourselves in jail, build our own organization. This later enabled us to extend our influence to every corner of Taiwan.
This new triad went by the name of the Celestial Alliance. It was less political and more violent than the Bamboo Union, which it decided to take on. Back in the United States, White Wolf extended his network to New York. But the police had been watching this strange Chinese man who had given them the tape ever since the murder of Henry Liu.
In New York, the mobsters from Fujian ended up joining the Bamboo Union. They did a drug deal. I wasn't there, but I was implicated in it. And I got 10 years.
Locked up with Italian Godfathers, Black Panthers, and Hezbollah militants, White Wolf had time to plan his revenge. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, the Triads were riding high, including on the silver screen. They had laid their hands on Hong Kong's booming movie industry, which generated sales of $1.5 billion that year in 1992. Charles Hung, brother of the Sun Yee-un's boss, dominated the sector. A huge kung fu fan, he sometimes played supporting roles in his own movies.
I worked on a project or two for the Winds production company. Charles Hearn knew what good movies are, and he was a good producer. They never made a cheap movie. All their movies had big stars.
For the Triads, cinema was not only a source of financial gain, but also a powerful tool for communication, on a scale unprecedented for a criminal organization.
I'm sure it made youngsters want to be gangsters.
So they copied their look, their way of speaking. All of that came from the movies.
Real-life violence inevitably caught up with the movies when the Sanyeons saw its preeminence challenged.
It created a lot of jealousy and envy amongst other Triad members, and they wanted to jump in because, you know, from their point of view, making movie is easy, making money with movies is very easy.
If a mobster shows up and says, "You're acting for me tomorrow," you cannot refuse, or he'll get his gun out. It was easy for them to hire actors. You dare not refuse, plus you accept a lower fee. Some don't even pay you once the movie is made. What can you do? They kill you, not the other way around.
And a famous actress was abducted and photographed naked for turning down a movie. For the same reason, the biggest star of the time was slapped by a 14K producer who was then murdered.
Charles Hearn immediately tried to control the situation and try to make peace, right? Although, you know, things didn't go the way they wanted.
And so began a cycle of vengeance and violence which shocked Hong Kongers. In 1992, for the first time ever, the Triads were faced with a protest whose members dared speak out against them. The British authorities were forced to take action. In Hong Kong, as in Taiwan, the growth of democracy threatened the Triads' grip. They would have to adapt and enter into an alliance with their old enemy, the Chinese Communist Party.